Demon Readings, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 X Reader Part 2 by dragonblade122. I never really knew how I lost my right leg. My dad said that I had lost it in a car crash. Well, that seems logical. Part of me kept thinking there was something else my dad was not telling me. I woke up to the sound of my alarm clock beeping. It was 8 o'clock. I groaned and I pressed whatever button was nearest. I got up and did my daily routine, or what I always wanted it to be, with some slight changes. Dad had given me a uniform for my waitress job and preferred me to change here as he didn't want anyone walking in on me while I got changed and see my mechanical leg. From what I've seen and heard, no one has ever had a prosthetic leg before. He also wanted people to think that I was just another person in need of a job. He didn't want anyone risk kidnapping me and holding me ransom. My heart melted from my dad's caringness. But there was times where I wished I was just a normal person who wanted a normal job, but I guess this is my chance at that. It was better than nothing, and I was grateful. After all, I could just end up like one of those snobby, I'm more richer than you kind of people. I admitted, though, I have been happily studying mechanics in my free time, but I had not had the chance to try it out. If my dad ever found out, I do not think he would be happy with me. Third POV. As you make your way to the dining room to eat, your mind began to wander at what it was to come when you entered the diner. Since you had never been into the diner before, you thought about what you did about the pizzeria. It had 5 animatronics. One was rumoured, from what you had heard when you went outside, to have been torn apart and put back together attraction, and you had no idea what they looked like apart from they were like the old ones but more kid friendly. Since your dad though that the old ones would scare them, you could have sworn you remember your dad saying something about data scanners being put in the new ones to protect the children, but you weren't completely certain about that. Oh yeah, and you had some photos of the outside of the building. You had to admit it looked very spacious, but something seemed off about it. Or was that just new? Nice to see you up and early, Scarlett. You almost leap off the floor at the sudden voice. Your dad was sitting at the table, digging into his English breakfast. You know me, Dad. I can't really wait to see the diner since I've never really been before. You managed to hide some of the hurt in your voice as you sat down and put some food on your plate. Your throat was getting better as you had been practicing your speaking in the mirror last night. I know. I realised I shouldn't have been keeping in here for the rest of your life if you wanted to take over the company. I know it's a very bad apology, and to make up for sending you off to a private school. Besides, you need to know what you are getting yourself into, and I thought this would be good for you. You kept nodding, but kept silent. This was another problem about your dad. One moment he was calm and happy, the next minute he looked paranoid and looked like he had a dark look. One minute he looked happy, the next he looked paranoid and looked like he had a dark look circling around him. There were times you thought he had a bipolar disease. You had a hard time trying to understand him, if at all. Is there a mechanic for the animatronics? You asked with pure interest. You watched your dad think for a moment, and then he replied, I did have one, but he got fired for tampering with the animatronics. That was about a week ago, now I think about it. He added after some thought, I'm looking for a new one right now, as well as a night guard. He looks at you. Why? You gulp. Well, isn't it wise to always check your staff to see if they're doing their job right? And if you haven't had one, then you should at least have a backup one. If not, then everything will most likely go downhill. You suggested, hoping your dad would agree. Surprisingly, he began to consider it. He was surprised by your answer. You were even more shocked when he smiled at you. You hold many interesting points, Scarlet. Ones that even I would never have thought of myself. I think you will be a great manager when it is time. His words held truth in them. You blink in surprise to stop the tears that threatened to escape. Thank you, you said softly but loud enough for your dad to hear. Unfortunately, the clock broke the both of you out of your happy trance. You look at your watches and saw that it was 8:30, and it was a 30-minute drive to the diner. You quickly say goodbye to your dad while stuffing your crumpet in your mouth and ran out the room and outside. Blinking at the sudden brightness, you quickly put on your sunglasses and resist the urge to sigh of relief at the change. As you walk down the steps, you freeze at the sight before you. Instead of the limo that your dad always made you get into, you were now looking at a brand new red Ferrari. I hope you like it. You turn around to find your dad there with a smile on his face. But you couldn't get the words to leave your mouth. I figured that if you want to be as normal as possible, you should have a car for yourself. Good thing I made you have driving tests, right? He lightly chuckled before he frowned. But if you don't want this car, I could always get you a new. He was cut off by you giving him the biggest hug in your whole life. You had never been able to hug him before after what happened to your mum. This seems like the perfect opportunity to know that you still care about him despite his earlier decisions in your life. Thank you. Your voice sounded desperate, as if to make him think he desperately needed to know how sincere those words were. He froze before returning the favour. You both felt the broken family bonds being refixed again. It may take some time to fix the bridge properly, but you both get to each other's end. All you needed to be was patient. You both broke out of the hug before going down the last flight of the stairs and into the Ferrari. You turned the engine on and almost screamed happily at the sound. Giving your dad one last wave through the window before driving out of the path and out into the open world. You had been given the instructions on how to find the place, so you had no problems on getting there. As you look at your back mirror, you see the mansion getting smaller and smaller before it disappears from view. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next chapter.